With me I have Ambassador Yehuda Avner, who is a former advisor to 5 Israeli prime ministers and also a former Israeli ambassador to 3 countries. So thank you very much for joining us here on RT. You've just written a book, The Prime Ministers, an intimate narrative of Israeli leadership. If you had to look at the early leaders of this country, what would you say was the common denominator between all of them?
They were all hewn from the same flinty rock of Jewish survival. Beginning with Ben-Gurion and Golda, who actually witnessed the pogroms of the Russia of their day, continuing with Yitzhak Rabin, who was a member of the Palmach, which was the commando fighting units of the underground of the day, the Haganah, and then Begin, who was in so many ways traumatized by the Holocaust. And this gave each one of them a steely interior of resolve that there will be no compromise on security.
Menachem Begin was a prisoner in the Soviet Gulag. How did this experience influence the man and his politics?
Menachem Begin was a child of 2 traumas. The experience of the Gulag. He was arrested in 1942 in Vilna by the Russian secret police as a Zionist activist. Even more so, he was a child of the Holocaust. He was a survivor of the Holocaust. He lost his whole family in the Holocaust. This haunted him for his whole life, and it impinged upon his decision-making processes. I remember the first time he met President Jimmy Carter. This was in July 1977. He began to pound the table and he said, "Mr. President, I take an oath before you, this will never ever happen again." And then he broke down in tears in the Oval Office. And a silence descended on the Oval Office, a silence that was so thunderous it was of itself a momentous political statement.
We've seen a lot of charges being leveled against Israeli politicians today, such as bribery, corruption, fraud. Would you say that the Israeli leadership is in crisis today? And what has happened since the leaders of the period of Menachem Begin, Golda Meir, Yitzhak Rabin?
But you didn't then have the tyranny of the 24 hours a day news cycle and the transparency of the modern society under the perpetual gaze of a very aggressive media. Israel is a democracy. Sometimes we overdo it as a democracy because of our system of government and of election.
In the book that you've written and in your career, was there a particularly special moment that stands out?
Unforgettable is the scene of Sadat's survival in Israel, November 1977. There I am with Prime Minister Begin and other members of the cabinet all lined up by the tarmac, and there standing at the door is Muhammad Anwar el-Sadat, the man who had tried every means to destroy us by war, by blockade. And there he stood. He'd come. And that moment where the 2 men, Begin and Sadat, clasped hands, and Begin said to him, "Mr. President, no more war, no more bloodshed, peace, salam, shalom, welcome to Israel."
Ambassador Yehuda Avner, thank you very much for joining us here on RT.
Thank you for having me.